to come back to this. I have another slide in that presentation. Right now you are using the power of Google Forms in the classroom. So my goal today is really to give you an overview of some of the uses of Google Forms and how they can be used in the classroom. This is going to extend a little bit beyond just how to take quizzes or things like that in the classroom. The bit.ly and the QR code is there. I have also uploaded this presentation into the P&C world, so it's also there as well. So we're going to go over some introductions of Google Forms and of myself. I'm going to give you some different uses of forms and then also show you some example forms. I do have a folder that's linked at the end of the presentation that should allow you to view most of the forms that I'm showing today. A couple of them aren't there because I worked on them with a team and I didn't feel like I had permission from everyone to share them. So most of the forms are there though. So my name is Pam Gerbinger. I teach 3rd grade at Pleasant Gap Elementary, which is part of the Bellefonte School District. Easiest way to say where we are 3 exits from Beaver Stadium, outside of State College. We are one of the neighboring school districts to State College area school district. And I am in my 11th year of teaching. I taught elementary life skills for my first 8 years. The past 2 years, I taught 4th grade English language arts. We are departmentalized, so I only did ELA, and this year I am now in 3rd grade. So part of some of these forms are some school-wide forms we use. Some of them are forms that I've used in 4th grade. Some of them are forms I use in 3rd grade. I didn't really do a lot with Google Forms when I was in special ed, so I don't really have a ton there. But a lot of these you can adapt for whatever you need. I also, over the summer, was Google certified level 1 educator. So, I don't know if this is of interest to anyone, but I did graduate from Wilson as part of their Masters of Educational Technology program, and I got my Instructional Technology Specialist certification through EduSpider. So if anyone is interested in those programs, I've done both. If you have questions, I can try to answer them. All right. So if you're not familiar with Google Forms, it is part of the Google Apps for Education. So if you are a Google school, you have access to this. And it's a really powerful tool that allows you to collect data and feedback from people inside your district or outside of your district. And then it allows you to organize and analyze that data. I've used it both professionally and personally. I'm pretty sure people around me are like, you don't need to create a Google form for everything in your life. But if, different events at church or things like that, I'm like, oh, I'll just create a Google form for people, and people roll their eyes. So for me, it's a very useful tool to collect data for people, and it has a lot of different uses. So you can do quizzes, you can do surveys, you can just get input. I've used it for practice activities in the classroom. You can do it both as a graded or a non-graded option, and there's a lot more. Our school, and I forgot to put it in here, our school actually uses Google Forms as our sign-out sheets. So we have Chromebooks in all the classrooms, and our students, when they're signing out to go to the bathroom, instead of having them log it, we have a Google form that they sign in and out that way. It's the same form, so we put the Chromebooks on kiosks. We have one K through 2, so the K through 2 form, they just click the person's face where they're coming from, or the icon where they're going. And our 3 through 5, it is words, but then we can track that, hey, this kid goes to the bathroom every day during special. It doesn't matter which special it is, or our 4th and 5th grade is departmentalized. They're going to the bathroom in every class plus special. We're going to the bathroom 6 times a day. There's a problem here. So it helps us kind of centralize all that data, and the kids are familiar with it, so it works really, really well, and it's free. So that was a plus for us. So if you're not familiar with Google Forms for quizzes, you can have them be self-grading. The easiest way to make them self-grading is to do multiple choice. You can do short answer. It makes it a little bit more difficult with typed responses because you have to put in every case that could be there. Or you can just go through at the end and just grade all of them. That's an option as well. So I've created some quizzes that had both multiple choice and open-ended responses. So all the multiple choice, if you choose to make it self-grading, are automatically graded, and then you just have to go through and grade the open response questions on your own. One thing I really liked about doing that is if I had question 5 that was an open response, I had the option to have every single answer from all the students for question 5 there and grade them all at once. So I felt like my consistency in grading was a lot better because I was grading all of those responses and I didn't have to go, well, what did I do for that answer back there? Like, it was all right there, and you could kind of base them like, oh, this one, this one I'm giving a 4 points to, so this one needs 4 points. I just felt I was a lot more consistent when I was grading the same question for all the students. So one of the other things that I really like is you can easily create a copy of the form to make modifications and accommodations. So I'm going to show you 2 different quizzes here. One is a multiple choice quiz that I gave my students, and then the other one is a modified quiz that I gave to the students who had IEPs that required modifications and accommodations. The nice thing is that when the kids took them, they look at the exact same. They really didn't know that, oh, hey, I have a different, I only have 6 questions instead of 10. I only have 3 answers or 3 choices instead of 4. So visually it looks the same, so it's a lot easier to differentiate that way. I will say that for the regular vocabulary quiz, I have it so there's sections and the questions can randomize throughout the section and the answers randomized. So if I had kids sitting like close to each other, I didn't feel like I ever had to worry as much about cheating, because if you're looking at your buddy, it's not necessarily the same question. Your choices aren't necessarily in the same order. When I did the modified quiz, I would have the students come to a small group table and I would read it to them, because that was one of their accommodations. I learned quickly to not randomize the question order and not randomize the choice order, because it made it easier when I was just reading it out loud. I could read it to all 3 kids, say when you're done, give me a thumbs up, and then we would move on. So that was a tip that I learned. So this is an example of a vocabulary quiz. Our 4th and 5th graders do work with Greek and Latin roots, so this would have been an end of unit quiz for the Greek and Latin roots. If I view this as a student, you're going to notice that it says I can't access it, but the locked mode is on. So locked mode is an option for students that allows them, or doesn't allow them, to click anywhere outside of the screen. It kind of locks that on there. It has really great advantages unless your students don't get done. There is no way at this point to go back in and restart the quiz unless they've changed it whenever the kids logged out, or if they got booted out, or for some reason they clicked done and they were done. So with longer assessments, that was really difficult to use the locked mode in general, because when they shut the lid of their Chromebook, it submitted it, they were done, and they couldn't get back in. But if you go to this is just a simple multiple choice. Multiple choice quiz. So I always did the class, I would see 2 different sections of students every day, so they just got used to selecting their homeroom class. And then if you look at these, this is self-grading, so it does have the answer key with the correct answer. And then I clicked over here to shuffle option order, so these 4 choices for students would be different. So this was one that when the kids clicked submit, they got their score right away, they knew how they did. I was able to import them into Google Classroom, and right there were my grades. So this was a really easy way that I was going to give them a multiple choice quiz anyway. Just creating Google Forms saved me time. They got instant feedback. And so I felt like it was a win-win for everyone. Now, this is the modified quiz, which you're going to notice looks very similar to the other one. I think one's called vocab quiz and one is called vocab test. I had to do that for myself because when I assigned them in Google Classroom, if I named them the same thing, I couldn't ever remember which one was which. So I put test on the end of one, or vocab versus vocabulary, something to help me remember which one was which. So it looks very much the same. Difference is they have 3 choices instead of 4. And we had chosen 6 vocabulary words for them to work on. So this quiz only has 6 questions instead of the other one having 10. But in a regular classroom, when you're looking at all the quizzes, they all look the same. So that was a huge advantage for me. One thing I also liked is that the quizzes are also printable. So if you go to print these, you have to do a little work. I use DocHub to kind of, white things out, take some things out. But it does give you a really nice printable version of a quiz that kids can just fill in the bubbles if you're doing multiple choice. So when I gave ELA tests when I was in 4th grade, we don't do them in 3rd grade, I would have the option to do it completely online, where the passages and everything were embedded into the Google form. where they would have a paper passage but still take the online Google form test, or completely paper passed. So we do complete our PSSAs online, so I felt like that online test practice was good for the students. But for their day-to-day performance, if a kid was better at taking a paper or pencil test, I didn't want to take that away. So it was the same test, it was just different options for them to take that test. So another way that I've used Google Forms is to survey others, so parents, students, staff, etc. So this is actually a survey we just did on Friday. We have our spring carnival coming up, and every class they encourage to make a basket. And so parents send in donations, you buy tickets the night of the carnival, they auction it off, the kids think it's great. Well, we had to figure out what basket we wanted to do. So my third graders gave me a list of about 12 baskets they wanted to do. And so this was the easiest way for me to do this real quick, because maybe your third graders or your students are much better at this, but when I say put your heads down and raise your hands, no one closes their eyes, they all look around, and then it's like, vote for this, and I'm like, no. So I did this while I was doing my guided reading. One of the to-do things on the to-do list for the day was for the students to go take this form quiz. So, which is Spring Carnival basket, I have to give our PTO committee 3 names, or 3 baskets. So it's real easy. Choose 3 of your favorite baskets. I showed the kids the quiz, I said, here are your words, and so they did it on their own. Well, wouldn't you know, we had a 3-way tie. So, the Darlings made me make another one, because we needed to know what was our top pick. So, on this one, the other one I used check boxes, so they were allowed to choose 3. I'll show you this real quick. And then at the bottom, they could only select at most 3. So you can put those conditions on there where they have to select at least a number or no more than a number. Because I knew them, they, all of a sudden couldn't count to 3. They would have 4. And then on this, for our final, so I could get the rankings, they were only allowed to choose 1, so I chose multiple choice. And then under responses, it just gave me a real quick graph, the spa basket one, and they were all so excited to do a spa basket. So, I just like that it keeps students from peeking or worrying about what it is, or political campaigns for vote for this. It's just more of a private way for them to vote. Really, it doesn't matter, but, and it didn't really interrupt our day. I taught guided reading with my kids. I just said, during our ELA block today, one of the things is go into our Google Classroom, take the form. That's the first link, and so it was really easy. I also do this, or have done it with our cafeteria rewards. So we have a loud cafeteria, maybe we're the only school with that problem. So our kids can earn rewards in the cafeteria. When you get your ice cream sundae, you get to vote if you want ice cream, extra recess, or to bank it for a bigger reward. So I've done Google Forms where the kids just go on real quick, click what they want, we move on. Same thing, it takes 3 minutes. And what I do at that point is I just have the same form over and over, and once we're done, I just clear the results. And so it's not that the results are stacking every time we start over. I get 15 responses, my 15 kids have responded, I tell them what we want, and then I'm able to clear it and use it again. Yeah, go ahead. No, so I don't have this block. The only time that I would do a locked quiz is if it's something that for instance, with the vocabulary quizzes, in our Google Classroom, all of the definitions are already listed because they're a material that I post. So for the quiz, I don't want them to have access to the definitions in their Google Classroom. So that would be a reason that I would lock it, because I want to test what they know, not if they can read the definition and apply it.
So that doesn't have anything to do with changing questions or answers?
No, it's just a way that the only thing on their screen is the quiz. They can't click out of it. And to change that, you just go under settings. And then I think it's under quizzes. So for the survey for the Spring Carnival, I didn't even make it a quiz. But if you click make it a quiz, then you can turn on the locked mode if you would like. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that only on
I'm seeing heads go yes. We only have Chromebooks for our students, so I know it works on a Chromebook. So, yeah.
If you do know an Apple product, or if you have Apple Classroom, you can use it.
It's actually not. I wanted to see mine just did that same thing.
I think the locked mode only works on student devices. Did it work on your PC?
I have where it says make this quiz.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't see the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have questions, feel free to ask. It's not a problem at all. So the next examples that I want to show you are how we use them to get input from others. So I consider those other ones surveys. They were just real quick. I just needed real quick data. I didn't care the name on it. There's not even a space for the name. Literally answer my question. Let's move on. So these are some forms that I or a team at our school have created to gather input for others. So I think most schools we use PBIS. I'm part of our Tier 2 committee. When you teach special ed for 8 years, you get on those committees. And so what we had noticed is that we get the students from the screener that we need to put interventions in place for. They become part of our Tier 2 students. But we need to gather input from the regular ed teachers so we know what interventions are going to work and which interventions are not going to work. So our Tier 2 team has put together this form, and you do not have access to this. This is the one that you don't, because we did it together and I wasn't sure if I should share it or not. So this is a standard form, and what we do is that the case manager makes a copy of this form and then sends it to that student's teacher so that we can gather input. So behavior and strategies. Please describe the behavior using the categories from the screener. Check the 2 highest areas of concern. So the kid may have, our screener goes from a 0 to 3. They might have 4 areas that they've scored 3. So just pick 2 so we can focus on it. Explain the answers in observable terms. So what does that behavior look like in the classroom? How intense is it? How long does it last? So kind of frequency, intensity, duration. And then what strategies have you tried and how long have they been in place? We have had Tier 2 meetings in the past where we're like, have you tried this? And the teacher's like, yes. Have you tried this? Yes. And so we're trying to generate ideas and the teacher has already put those interventions in place, so then we're wasting our time. So this form allows us to gather data. So when we have those meetings with the teachers, we can say, we looked at your data, this is the recommendation we're recommending, what do you think? So the intervention, potential motivators for the student, the rules to focus on, so which one of our score rules we want to focus on, be ready, be safe, be kind, be respectful. Any interventions that are not going to work. I just had a meeting the other day, the parent is not a fan of our school, so the parent communication book is not going to work for the student. And then expectations, what are their expectations for us as a committee? So this form has made those meetings go a lot smoother. It doesn't take that much time for the teachers to fill out, but it gives us a lot of really helpful information when we're planning interventions and what it's going to look like for a particular student. This is a student profile form that I send out to to the parents of my students about a week before school starts. So as soon as parent email addresses are loaded into PowerSchool for me, I'm able to make my email list, and then usually about a week before school, I'll email this out to parents and say, hi, I'm your student's teacher. If you want to fill this out before the paperwork comes home the first day of school, go ahead. If not, I'll email it out again the first day of school. I give them that option. Some parents love to fill it out early. Others are like, please don't bother me till the first day of school. And then I also have a paper copy that I send home with students whose parents don't complete the online version. But this has helped me gain a lot of really helpful information for students prior to the first day of school. So just kind of basic information, name, what they prefer to be called, parents' names, student's address, best way of getting information, and then parent demographics. We have noticed how interesting it is when these addresses or email addresses or phone numbers don't match what we have in PowerSchool. So this is always really helpful. You know, when you try to call home and the phone number doesn't work, you have those additional tools because the parents have put something else in here. And then, so if you're not familiar, I'm going to talk a little bit about differentiated forms. So differentiated forms allow you to go to different sections based on an answer. So this question here says, would either parent be interested in volunteering? So if a parent clicks yes, then it goes to the volunteering form or section. If the parent selects no, it just skips this section completely, and then they just continue on. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a little bit. So if the parent checks yes, then we have a section that talks about volunteering. Have they be interested in volunteering in the classroom? if they click no, it skips that section and comes right to this information about your child. So this just gives me information on the kid, what they like, what they don't like, things I need to know, what are their strengths, what are the weaknesses. It's always interesting to get those before the first day of school, because sometimes it gives me information to make connections with students. Oh, I know you really like football. How's football season going? So I feel like it kind of gives me a leg up before the first day of school. And then this is the parent-teacher conference form. My 4th grade level partner and I last year created this form, and then this year we updated it even though we're in different classes. So we have about 15 minutes at parent-teacher conferences, and sometimes I feel like that time is, I don't use it the way the parents want us to. And so what we did is we started sending these home last year to kind of give us an idea of how do you want to spend that 15 minutes that we have together. So this would be sent home about a week or two prior to conferences. This is not how we schedule. I'll show you another form about how we have scheduled parent-teacher conferences. So what do they enjoy most? What about those subjects do they enjoy most? We realized that in sitting through 2 years of conferences together, ELA was always not the favorite subject. I shouldn't say that. Was rarely the favorite subject of the boys that we were meeting on. They all loved math and science. So just so we knew, if I was seeing problems in the ELA classroom, what the parents are saying they love math and science, well, is it a behavior issue or is it an interest issue? So then it just gave us information. Do they participate in any after-school activities? We did this because if homework was an issue and they were participating in a lot of activities, we just wanted to address it. Same thing, this is a differentiated where if they click yes, if they participate, it goes down to what activities. If they click no, it just skips that. Ooh, what happened? And then talking points. What questions and or concerns do you have that you would like to address? So this kind of gave us an opportunity to gather additional data if we needed to for our parent-teacher conferences, or at least be prepared to answer some of the questions that may come up. So this past year, we took this information, we opened it into the spreadsheet, and then we were able to use the AutoCAD add-on to create a mail merge. So for parents who had completed this form, I had a printed out page of all their answers already to go over parent-teacher conferences, which was really nice because I could pull it out. I had written some notes on it prior so that I had some additional information, maybe some talking points that I wanted to make during our conference, and I was able to put it in that student's folder, and then during conferences, just pull it out and everything was there. So doing the mail merge and having those sheets this year was really, really nice because those 15 minutes I felt like we were able to address questions, concerns that parents had, and it wasn't just me talking to them about information that they really didn't care about. So differentiated activities are another way that you can do this. So this is sometimes called branching forms or differentiated quizzes, or there are a lot of different names. So this is that option that allows you to go to different sections based on answers. So our math department, our 4th and 5th grade math teachers and some of our 3rd grade math teachers do this at the end of every single math lesson where there's questions from that lesson. And so if the students score high on it, it'll tell them to type their name in the box, and it'll come up on the form, on the spreadsheet that the teacher has as independent. So that means that they're able to take their homework and go just work on it on their own because they've understood the lesson. If they're kind of in the middle, a box will come up, they'll type their name in, it'll designate them as partner. So they'll work on their homework with their partner because they just need a little extra support. And then if they really struggle with those concepts, it'll pop up as teacher, and then they'll come back to the teaching table so that they can go over the homework with the teachers for some reteaching. So this is a review activity that I did when I taught 4th grade ELA. So essentially what this was is it was a review of questions that were going to be on a quiz or on a test, where the first question in every section kind of was, do you know what you're talking about? It was a pretty easy question, but if a kid got it wrong, that definitely meant that, we needed to review this. So if they got this question right, it would just go to the second question that had to do with text features. If they got it wrong, it would come to the text features review. And so then this was a video that I had pulled from YouTube that would kind of review text features with them. Because some of my students, I realized that all they needed to do was just have a quick review, and they're like, oh yeah, I remember what you're talking about now. And then after this video, they were asked the question, do you want to continue to the next section, or I need help? So if they watched the video and they had no clue what they were doing, their job was to click the I need help button. So then this was the second text features question. Same thing, if the students got it right, it would bounce them completely to the next skill. If they got it wrong, it would take them back to the review, and once again they had the option of continue to the next section or I need help. And then if it went to the I need help, they would just type their name in the box for text features help. So this just told me that I needed to gather those students before the quiz and review text features with them because they weren't understanding that part. And so I would do this for each. What I did is it's kind of a set order where it was question 1, review 1, question 2, review 2, help. So that helped me with the linking part because you have to link with where they go. So if I use that same structure for every single topic, it was easier for my brain to like, okay, this is where you're going. And so you can only do the linking with a multiple choice question. So you can only have it go to a different section based off an answer for multiple choice questions. So if you click on the 3 dots at the bottom, it's the go to section based off answer. And then this allows you to choose where you're going. So if the student got it correct, they moved on to the analogies questions. If they got it, so I sometimes would do like 3 questions, like one that was the correct answer, one that was like, okay, you kind of get it, and one that was, okay, you're in trouble. So if they chose lemon, it went to the text features review 2, which gave them an option to review it. And if they chose chocolate, that was the please just type your name in the box, we need some reteaching. So this is one of the differentiated quizzes that we use them in different ways throughout our district. Anyone have questions on that? Because that can be sometimes a little bit confusing. Go ahead.
You storyboard it? Like, you know, you draw it all out with Jack Knapp and...
I tried and I got confused.
Okay. All right,
So for me, it was...
That's the only way I thought I could visualize it. Okay, I want to storyboard the whole thing.
Yeah.
See it or a flow chart kind of thing.
And for some people, that's really helpful. For me, it was just easier to do, okay, these are the 6 topics I'm going to work on. So for text features, I'm going to have the first question of every section be the kind of ballpark question, like, do you have a clue or are you lost? And then after that, the next one is going to be that review 1. And the reason that I couldn't have I had to have review 1 and review 2 is because if I would have just had review 1, if I do continue to the next section, I was going to get stuck in a loop. So I had to have, it was essentially the same question, I just had to label it differently so that you don't get stuck in a loop of, if I hit continue to next section, it wasn't always going to go where I needed it to go. So for me, it was easier to map out each section and then just kind of clone that section for each skill I was working on. But yeah, so sometimes the flowchart helped, sometimes the flowchart just lost me more than it was worth, so.
So did you say that you did the question 1 for review, question 2 review, and then
Yeah, so I have question 1. You'll notice that I labeled them all the same, so it's text features 1. So skill, question 1. And then text features review. Sometimes I forgot to put a 1, that was just, if it didn't have a number, it was the first one. And then, so if I clicked continue to the next section here, without having 2, it was going to, let me think about this. If I would have had it come back after the second question, and I wouldn't have had 2 different reviews. So after the second question for text features, if they would have gotten it wrong and come to this, if I would have not had the second one, it would have been stuck in a loop where if they click continue to next section, it was just going to go back to question 2. So that's why I had to have the 2 separate review questions so that that loop wouldn't, they couldn't get stuck anywhere. If you're doing a differentiated quiz, it's really helpful for you to try it out or to have, if you have kids at home, them try it out just to make sure you don't have loops that you get stuck in. That's the biggest problem with differentiated quizzes. You don't want to get stuck into loops. So then I have the second question, the second review, and then the I need help. So if they clicked I need help during the first review, it would just go to the text features help box. It would kind of skip the second question, and they would just go to the help box, and then I would pull them for reteaching. So using forms for classroom activities for instigating feedback. So one thing I noticed is that I didn't need to grade everything that my students did. They could do practice activities, but I also didn't want a stack of papers that I had to come home every night and grade, especially if it wasn't going to be graded. So I would use Google Forms for a lot of this because it would give the students instant feedback. I would make it a self-grading quiz so the kids could see what they got right and what they got wrong. They were able to go back in their notes and look at what was right and what was wrong. I could answer questions, when I had time on that, but it wasn't requiring me to grade it. And I could also go through the scores and think, oh, why did this kid get a 3 out of 10? Like, what do we need to do here? So the spelling sentences is something I did that for. I would also do some vocabulary activities that might be multiple choice with analogies or something like that, where the kids could practice it. But if they got a 5 out of 10, it wasn't graded, but they were able to see the right answers. So they were able to get feedback way faster than I could if I had to take things home, grade them, and give it back. So this is an example of a self-grading quiz that is a short answer. The only reason that I have it self-grading and short answer is because these were their spelling words. So I felt pretty confident that you should be able to type your spelling words incorrectly. You should be able to type your spelling words in the box correctly. So this is one that I did grade spelling because they were your spelling words. And so I originally started with 10 sentences all in one section. The kids would have their 10 words. It was a disaster. So what I would do then is I would break them into sections. So section 1 has 5 words, and I think I did 12 on a page, just a little list of the words for the students that would say section 1, and have the 5 words that were in section 1, the 5 words that were in section 2. That just broke it up for them a little bit more. Greek and Latin roots are a little intense for 4th graders. So this is one where it is a short answer, but it is graded, and then if you click on the answer key, you type in the correct answer. And since they were their spelling words and they had the spelling right beside them on their list, I felt okay being like, they have to be spelled correctly. And we would have a conversation that if it's not at the beginning of the sentence, it's not capitalized. Now, if the spelling word or if the vocabulary word was at the beginning of the sentence, so they were spelling and vocabulary words, at the beginning of the sentence, I did in that case add a second correct answer, and I would take it capitalized or not capitalized. That was the one exception of having multiple answers. But then what you can do is if you are going to do a short answer, if I had everything else being correct, like spell it right, it's your spelling word, let's move on. But sometimes if I was doing an ELA quiz and there were open-ended questions that might have been just a short response and not, a paragraph response, I could type the correct answers in here, and then if I unchecked this, it just would not grade that question if it wasn't the exact thing that I had in the box. So that would allow me to go back. It's incredible how many kids will put spaces afterwards if there's only one word. So a lot of them, I'm like, you have the right answer, you just typed after spaces, or you put a space before, or something like that. So I could give them credit for those responses, even though they weren't, Google Forms didn't recognize them as correct. Go ahead.
So it only recognizes an exact match. You can't tell it to pull out certain words from an answer, and if the answer includes these words, then
Yes.
it's correct. Okay.
Correct.
So even a space throws it off.
Yes. So for spelling sentences, this was like the one activity that I could do this with confidence in and feel good about it. And the other short answers, a lot of times I would put the correct answer in there because that way it would grade it if the students put it in the exact same form, but then it would also allow me to go back in. I will say if you create a quiz that has open responses on it, please make sure that under your settings and under its quizzes, click later after manual review. I forgot to do that once, and I had a student, very high achieving student, that had a 5 out of 18 on her quiz because only 5 of the questions were self-grading, the rest were open response that I had to go back and grade, and it about put her in a panic attack. So if there are short answer responses that you're gonna need to go back in and grade, highly recommend the later after manual review. They just don't see a score. Honestly, I don't know what it looks like to send them their scores. Our elementary students do not have access to their email. So the way that you send them their scores later is through email, and I could never do that because our students don't have their email turned on until middle school. But I know there is a way to send them their scores through their email once you go do them, go grade those manual responses. And then you can also choose to see, if you want students to see missed questions, correct answers, point values, you have control over that. So if you're gonna give the same quiz, 3 times in a day, first period, third period, and 8th period, you might not want to for them to be able to see correct responses. Maybe your kids are really honest and you trust them, but you do have control over what they see. When I was doing practice activities that weren't graded, I wanted them to see the correct response because I wanted them to see what they did wrong so that they could fix it. So there's a lot of other ways that you can use them. You can use them for exit tickets. I don't have any examples of that, but I think, if you have an exit ticket, you can create a form for it. The other way that we use it is we use it for scheduling a couple different ways in our district. I am not part of this, but our professional learning committee, when we sign up for sessions on our professional learning day, they use this feature, and then we use it for our parent-teacher conference signups. So when I was in 4th grade, we had 38 students that we needed to see for conferences, we had 38 students, we had parent-teacher conferences. My grade level partner and I decided that it wasn't always best that we met separately, because if I had 10 minutes and she had 10 minutes, we didn't need to each spend 5 minutes talking about Johnny's behavior. That it was better to combine those times, and so we, both are in the same room, talking to the parents, saying this is what we see about Johnny's behavior and here are the academics. So we would do our conferences together, and so we would choose the students that we felt needed to have a conference, and we would contact parents. And so what we would typically do is send out a Google form like this and allow parents to sign up with conferences. And we use an add-on called Choice Eliminator 2. So the puzzle piece at the top is where you can get different add-ons. Choice Eliminator 2 is what we would use. And what it did is we had a lot more conference times than this. As parents would choose a time, it was no longer an option. So we didn't have to worry about parents signing up for the same time, or more than one parent signing up for the same time. It was a way for parents to sign up. We could have it send them an email that confirmed, like when they clicked submit, it sent them an email that said this is what you chose, so hopefully they wouldn't forget when their conference time was. But then we didn't have to worry about more than one parent signing up for that. And so our professional learning committee does something similar to this, where you can set limits. If you have a room of 20, they only allow 20 participants in that session, so after 20 people fill it, then it's no longer an option. So this can be really helpful if you're trying to schedule, a given number of people at one time. So I've attached some additional resources for you to use. One of them is from Matt Miller. It's just Ditch That Textbook, 25 Historical Ways to Use Google Forms. The links are all available in the presentation. And then there's a folder that is linked right there that has an example of most of the forms that were found here. If you have questions afterwards, my email is there. Feel free to email me, and then just credit for the slide template. So, what questions do you have that I can hopefully answer?
When you make your spell that you look at once when it's spelled correctly, is the spell check feature still enabled where it has a little red squiggly line so they know it's misspelled?
I'm pretty sure it is. So it was one of those, if you misspelled it and there was a red squiggly line and you didn't do anything about it, that one's on you. Yeah, go ahead.
Through the Google Forms as a survey, do you have any experience with printing it out afterward? Because it's pages, there's no download that you get a printable form. So in the pie charts, they'd be like all over the place, and I screenshot it multiple times just to get it in something I could download to look at.
So when you did that, did you ever use the spreadsheet feature?
No.
So,
Well, it came two different ways. It came like with data and then it's
Right.
individual?
So I'm not gonna be able to do a ton here, 'cause these, I just made copies, so these are all blank forms.
Right.
But under responses, if you click on the spreadsheet,
Okay,
that will open it in a Google Sheets.
okay.
So that you would probably have to generate all of those graphs from there.
Afterwards. But when you do the summary of it, like the responses,
Yes,
it gives you pie charts and everything.
Correct.
It's so nice, but
If you put it in your sheet, you could possibly like highlight.
you have to recreate all
Yeah,
that.
Correct.
yeah.
So it's probably just easier to screenshot.
yeah, it's probably just easier to screenshot them
Cause
anyway.
it was like a 20-some question. Rather than all these different-
And what I've done for my principal, if I'm using a Google form and I'm printing it to provide a paper copy, is I go to file print, and I have to play a lot. This one isn't bad because it's fill in the blank, but let me go to one that's multiple choice because it doesn't always look great when it is multiple choice.
I just made the percentage to get it to like.
Okay, what I have done for this is, once it goes. Alright, so this doesn't look bad. Oh, of course, it's all perfect today. But if a question is cut off,
Yeah,
or
compare. See what happens with chicken.
I think it's gonna keep the same thing. But if a question was cut off, or if I had, for some of my ELA tests, I would have a map and have two questions and maybe they wouldn't fit on the same quiz. Or the same page. What I would do is I would just add questions, and then if you're not familiar with DocHub, it allows you, it's an extension in Google that allows you to like use a whiteout tool or create text boxes. So what I would do then is I would download it as a PDF, open it with DocHub, and then I would white out the date, all of this stuff up here, the last page that has all the Google Form stuff, I would white that out. A lot of times I would white out the numbers because name, well this one is email address, but your name, date, and class, they're all numbered. So my kids are like, this is worth points? No, it's not worth points. So I would, as I typed the question, my question was number 1 and then the question, and then I could get rid of all those numbers. And then I would have to add lines for longer responses. So it was kind of a pain, but it made it look better in my opinion than one that I had done in like Docs or something where they had to circle the letter. So, and I knew then that it was the exact same test that the online version was. Yeah, go ahead.
I use Guru to grade
Okay.
everything.
Yes.
And I've tinkered a little bit with the block mode, but I like to be able to, let the kids take a test over again.
Yes.
Or, whatever 4 questions, and they're not happy with their score, go ahead, do it again. But then I like to have that data, like with Google, let me just run it. So I can
Right.
say to the special ed teacher, the parent, like, look, they took 4 times. Or, one kid took it 18 times in, 3 minutes, you were just guessing. Does the locked mode do that? Like, or not the quiz mode, I guess, in Google Forms.
Yeah, so under the quiz mode, you can allow students to take it more than once. So under settings, right here, limit to 1 response. So even if I make it a quiz,
But will it override? Like, I wanna be, like,
no, the spreadsheet will just show the multiple. Yep. Well, now it's telling me, because I have it in locked mode. If I turn off locked mode, then I can limit it to 1 response or not limit it to 1 response. But if you have locked mode on, it does limit it to 1 response. Does that make sense?
so it's locked mode on the.
Yeah, so, yes. So if locked mode is on, which just means that they can't click on anything outside of that
Yeah, sorry.
screen, then yes.
Thank you.
So I do have, if we go back to our Mentimeter, let me go to like an end of. P allows you to have more than one slide in that presentation. Sorry, I'll bring this over so I can actually see it. So if you're still in Menti, it's the same code. So if you're still in there, you can just, it should have gone ahead and flipped on your screen. If not, you can use the code again. So this, just if you don't mind just answering this question, how can you use Google Forms in the future? And what this will do is as you enter your response, it'll just pop up on the board. So were you able to see those, when you clicked, or did anyone click on any of the links of the forms in the presentation? Were you able to access them, to view them? You were not able to.
I couldn't, the link in the app didn't work on my phone.
One more time.
Okay, I thought
Say it one more time, what did you have?
the links for the example forms, I'll work on that, sorry.
Yeah, most of them worked for me. I think there was only one that I couldn't get to. What was it?
I got an email from someone who's watching us virtually, and so I just wanted to know if it.
The fourth grade ELA review. I couldn't get into.
I couldn't see any of them on the app. I'm getting a sorry not available message.
Really, when I switched to Chrome, it shows me that.
Oh, so it's Safari, they might be.
It's interesting because they're all in the same folder as my presentation.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh.
But it's like through the P&C app wasn't working for me.
Okay, so what did you switch to?
I don't know, I don't.
The spring carnival ones.
Mhm.
I mean, I did go in to look at them because I've created similar, but
Right.
now that I'm looking, can't get into those either.
I'll work on that.
Just for your FYI.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Same thing with the vocabulary quizzes.
Okay. If you click on the, sorry, does someone mind trying the link at the end on the questions to see if you can access that folder? Because on my end, I'm seeing that anyone with the link can view them.
Yes, that link works.
You got that right.
Okay.
That's got everything.
Right. And you can view, you can
Yep.
open them. You shouldn't be able to edit them, but you should be able to view all of them. Alright, I'll try to work on the links then within the presentation. And I can go ahead and link the folder in the P&C app as well.
Yeah, that appears to be working really well.
Okay. I'm not sure why if they're all in there and have the same permission it doesn't work, but
Because it's your first year, it's your first session. That works.
did a great job first time.
Thanks. So everyone's like, now you're done, you can have it later. Like, okay, that's true.
So the app, the link in the app isn't working for me anyway.
Okay.
I don't think it's you though, I think it's the app.
Okay.
Because I tried for one of the other sessions that I'm gonna go to, and the same thing happened. So I don't think it's anything you did.
Yeah, it's just weird that all of the, I have my presentation and all the examples in one folder because I was like, I'll just do the folder level permissions and.
Yeah, I can't access anything through the app. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Weird. Yep, and here we go.
Oh, who is the person that talked about ordering bagels still here? That's our middle school. This is how they do their Friday lunch orders. They create Google Forms. Like they have a standard form for the Chinese place. Like, what do you want? That's how they order their Friday lunches.
That's so funny.
We're a small building, so we don't do it. But that's how the middle school orders Chinese.
Our learning support staff has like a coffee thing.
Yeah.